Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we will read the last update of the story about a woman whose sister threw a tantrum just because the woman was chosen to be the maid of honor and not her. If you haven't seen part 1 and 2 yet, I highly recommend watching it on our channel first to fully understand the story and its progression. Let's get started. It was about 2 weeks, I think. It's all been a weird blur since I had that talk with Carrie, and I had since then blocked my mom, dad, and Carrie on everything, just hoping things may settle on their own. Well, it didn't exactly settle, but here's what happened. About 2 weeks after everything, my fiancé and I were just chilling late one evening watching TV. It was about 2 a.m. when fiancé gets a phone call from Carrie. He had never blocked her number or mom's, so at first we just left it, not wanting to deal with whatever Carrie was wanting to talk about at 2 a.m. But then right after we ignored the first call, she called a second time and left a voice message telling my fiancé to pick up the phone ASAP because there's an emergency. Right away, he called back. And all we could understand from Carrie was something was going on with Mom and she didn't know what to do. We hurried over there and were greeted by Carrie, who told us Mom was acting hysterical and she didn't know what to do. When I asked where Stepdad was, she said they had gotten into a huge row a few days prior, and he was now staying at a hotel somewhere. She led us over to Mom's room, and on the way there, I could see the family photos that were hung up in the hallway were either laying down on the floor or smashed. When we entered the bedroom, however, Mom was calm, watching a TV show. She looked over to me and said something along the lines of, "Well, if it isn't my only daughter." Her speech was incredibly slurred, so it was hard to hear, and Carrie told me not to pay any mind to what she was saying because the last hour she's been out of it and saying off things. I thought maybe Mom was going to start shouting or something, but instead she continued to watch TV. I asked Carrie if Mom was drunk, and she said she wasn't sure, although she knew she had some wine earlier. Apparently, Mom had been saying weird stuff that just made no sense at all, then started screaming and shouting about broken families being stuck in the picture frames, so that's why there was that mess in the hall. As I was questioning Carrie, my fiancé decided to call the emergency line to get Mom an ambulance. He asked Carrie if Mom was on any medication, and apparently she was on something for anxiety and depression, which I had no idea. I knew Mom had anxiety issues, but I never knew much else. Once fiancé got off the phone with the emergency line, Carrie went and grabbed us the bottles of Mom's medications to bring to the doctors, while fiancé tried to get a hold of my stepdad. I asked Carrie if she contacted our other sister, and she said no because she didn't want to cause any unnecessary stress for her or for the baby. She then went on to admit that she knew I was right the entire time when I told her that stress could affect a pregnancy, but just didn't want to admit it before. I decided now wasn't the time to argue and just kept my mouth shut. Eventually, the paramedics came, and just as they did, Mom started screaming in hysterics again, screaming and yelling stuff that I don't even quite remember because it was garbled and didn't make sense. Something about her needing to stay to feed the baby. We all went to the hospital, and eventually, fiancé finally got a hold of stepdad, and he arrived much later. But the doctor figured with the amounts of stress, and with her and Dad's constant fighting, plus the mixture of alcohol and her medication, turns out she had drank quite a bit that night. It was like she just sort of snapped, and she became somewhat confused and disoriented. He also figures Mom hasn't been taking her medication properly. Physically, Mom was perfectly fine, but they are keeping her in for a few days just to keep an eye on her. I haven't been able to visit her or see her until she gets released, but Dad was able to go in and verify a few things. But as far as I know, he's not really allowed to stay with her either, and was able to see her that night she was admitted. As for the actual wedding stuff, While Carrie and I were driving back home, she had told me that Laura texted her a few days before and told her that I was still going to be maid of honor. The decision was final, and she would not be answering her or our parents' phone calls or texts about the matter. Hearing this had led to more fighting between Mom, Dad, and Carrie, and shouting, and that's when things went mostly downhill. Neither Carrie nor my parents have spoken to Laura in a few days since. I was completely taken aback, especially since Laura never told me this herself. I tried getting more information, but Carrie was pretty much silent the entire way back home. She did have a little speech prepared about how she might no longer even consider me her sister again, how betrayed she was by everything, and I just let her talk and didn't have much to say. I was too tired to fight or do anything, and she had nothing else to say about the wedding or Mom's breakdown, and I haven't spoken to her since. Currently, I am looking for family therapy for the very near future. I'm not sure what's available since the bug, but I plan on getting in touch with Mom's doctor to see if he has any suggestions. I had told Alan what happened, and I'm hoping he will be able to tell Laura without her stressing out too much. I suggested he keep it vague and to tell her Mom was completely fine, and that's it. And that's the end of this story. What do you guys think about this whole story? Let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you guys on the next video.